Oh, the cup. Yeah, I wouldn't say I exactly love sleep. It's more like a love-hate relationship. I love sleep in the sense that once I get it, I get to go back to being my normal self. I hate it in the sense that it kind of controls my life. And I miss out on a lot of life when I'm sleeping. You see, I have this little thing called narcolepsy. Narco. Polo. Narco. Polo. Hi, my name is Sarah House. I'm 32 years old, and I have been living with type 1 narcolepsy with cataplexy for the last 15 years. I'm currently doing a series called Narco Polo to discuss the many topics around the condition narcolepsy. And before I dive into that series, I want to start from the beginning, where I got diagnosed. So tonight I'm going to explain all about my diagnosis and the symptoms leading up to that. Just to paint a little picture for you, I grew up in west central Minnesota, a small rural farming community. Kindergarten through 12th grade was in one class or in one building, and leading up to my diagnosis of narcolepsy, I was a good student. Grades were A's and B's. Very active, cheerleading, volleyball, choir, band. Student council, anything that I could do to be involved or stay busy, I was right there doing it. My narcolepsy symptoms really started to show right around my 10th grade year. But prior to that, my mom said that I always came home from kindergarten, first grade, and I would still take naps. But back to the 10th grade, I think it was 10th grade year, my grades started to slip and I was really feeling tired, and we went to the doctor to see, what was going on, and I had my blood tested for mono. That was kind of the main concern, and then we also tested thyroid, hemoglobin, kidneys, diabetes, and everything came back negative. So we were kind of thinking, okay, maybe we're just, maybe we're overreacting. It's probably just a growth spurt. And so we made it through I made it through the end of the school year, and then that summer I was a waitress, I believe, and so I was, on my feet, and then I was going to bed at around midnight, waking up at noon, getting 12 hours of sleep. I was still tired, but it wasn't anything like it was during the school year. So we're back in the school year. I'm now a junior, and get through September, October, parent-teacher conferences, November. My parents come home and say, Sarah, your grades are not, they're at C's, D's, and you even have an F. What's going on? And I was like, I can't stay awake. Every single one of my teachers, not one of them did not mention my sleep. Every single one mentioned that I'm always tired and that my grades are slipping. So we went into the doctor again, a different doctor this time, got my blood tested for, again, mono, thyroid, everything came back negative. And it was so frustrating because we just couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. Now, I remember a couple specific times in high school. The first one was I would go to bed at 7 p.m., wake up at 7 a.m., 12 hours of sleep, get to my first hour geometry class, looking at the chalkboard, and I was doing anything to keep my eyelids, it felt like there was bricks on my eyelids, and I could not focus. I couldn't focus. I couldn't concentrate. Everything was like foggy. It was so frustrating, and I think my grade really slipped in that class. And then my one time in one of my English classes, as a junior, I fell asleep. The last 10 minutes of class he usually gave us to catch up on assignment, or so that we didn't have to bring home homework. We could work on our assignment then. Well, for me, that was nap time. So for those last 10 minutes, head down, and that was my time to sleep. I fell into such a deep sleep that I slept through our like really old loud bell. Like deep. No, ours were like that, like loud. Slept right through it. I remember waking up, putting my head up and looking around, and he was in the middle of a class teaching 7th graders, and I'm in 11th grade. Yeah, I've been in that class sleeping for like 20 minutes. So I obviously have to go down to the office, get an unexcused like tardy, and go to my next class late. Another time I was in chemistry class, and this teacher was like a family friend. So I don't want to say like she scolded me, but it was kind of like she was like, you need to be getting more sleep. And I'd be like, I went to bed at 7 p.m. last night. I got 12 hours of sleep. And like, she'd be like, House, you got to get more sleep, And I didn't know what else to do, but I would look up my notes, and they would be like, I was taking notes, and it would be like neutrons, electrons. Then it would be like green shirt or like something totally weird. And I'm thinking back now, I bet it's where like my brain, I'm in class and all of a sudden I start to hit sleep. If I'm entering REM sleep, I like maybe a dream or something. So bizarre. Grades obviously suffered in there. And in that chemistry class was the first time I remember an episode with probably one of my earliest memories, my earliest of cataplexy. I remember one of my classmates in my group, we were cleaning up from a project. She needed a pencil, and I'm like, here. And I threw the pencil to her. But like, they talk about that, like, that feeling of like reward before something happens. And that's what happened right before the pencil got to her. I like lost all muscle control. And I remember like falling back, and I hit my head on a cupboard, but like my knee gave, and so I fell back, hit my head hard on the cupboards, and like fell to the ground. It wasn't like a serious injury, but that was probably my like earliest memory with cataplexy. High school, that year before I got diagnosed was very frustrating. Constantly having to tell, I did get sleep last night. I don't know why I'm tired. And again, I'm an active, like I loved being involved. So when my parents got, her grades are at this, my dad grounded me, or both of my parents grounded me and said, you have to be in bed at 9 p.m. every night, lights out. So I remember going to like basketball games and stuff like that, and I'd have to leave at halftime, so I would like speed home, get home, and dive into bed and just crash. Like, so that's kind of how that went. We went to a second doctor and had my blood tested after those parent-teacher conferences. And again, mono, hemoglobin, diabetes, all that. And they came back negative again. But this time, rather than like the doctor just saying, sorry, negative, like, he said, I think you might have like something with sleep. And he brought up sleep apnea, but he said, have you ever heard of narcolepsy? Little did I know that word would become a huge part of my life, for the rest of my life. And it was the first time I had heard it, and he started describing it, and then he started describing cataplexy from like just really basic of like what he knew of it. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what? Like, I couldn't believe, I was like, yes, my knees get weak when I laugh. And actually, I just found some of my narcolepsy documents. He sent out, he said, I can't do the sleep study test here, so you're going to have to go to like an actual sleep center to get the test done to get an official diagnosis. And so he sent out the referral up to Fargo, North Dakota, which is about an hour and a half away. They couldn't get me until like April. Then he sent one the other way towards St. Cloud, Minnesota, which is right central Minnesota, and about an hour and a half too. And he said, he explained what was going on, and they couldn't get me in until right around the same time. And he called back to St. Cloud and he said, listen, do you have any slots open for like referrals or severe cases. This girl needs to be seen. And thank goodness, because me and my mom, you know, we're at November. I couldn't go another 6 months until I saw a doctor. And he got me in January. So I only had to deal with all of this for another 2 months before I saw a doctor. Now this is his referral letter. This is dated 12/12 of 2003. I was 16 years old. Sarah is a 16-year-old lady who is here with her mother for an evaluation of possible sleep problems. Sarah, for the past year now, has been very sleepy. This fall at parent-teacher conferences, all of the teachers mentioned that she is drowsy in class. She is sleeping in class, and she is having a hard time concentrating. Her grades have dropped, and Sarah's mother got on the internet and started looking about sleeping disorders and came to me today for a sleep evaluation. Apparently, Sarah has needed a lot of sleep. Even in kindergarten and first grade, her mom said she would still take naps. In school, she's always gotten good grades. She has been active in sports and volleyball, cheerleading, up until this year, where she basically had to stop all of it because she's just too tired to do anything. She states that the first few hours at school, she can hardly stay awake. She can't concentrate. She is too tired to take notes. She often falls asleep in class. Generally, by afternoon, she feels a little better. She comes home after school and she lays down to take a nap for 2 to 3 hours. And then she'll still go back to bed at a regular 10 or 10:30. Her mother states that she snores a little bit, but not much. No one has ever really noticed sleep apnea or any apnea problems. She sleeps like a rock, and she sleeps through the night. She never wakes up. She does toss and turn a little bit, according to her mom, but not a great deal. She doesn't notice if other people are going in and out of the house, and she doesn't wake up if the phone rings. It is hard to wake her up in the morning. Her mother states her alarm rings, and it seems like it rings for minutes before Sarah finally wakes up and turns it off. If her mother tries to wake her when she's taking a nap after school, she is very difficult to arouse. She will typically set her alarm for 6:30 a.m. and she will hit snooze multiple times before she gets up between 7 and 7:30. She doesn't drink caffeinated beverages. She does get drowsy when she's driving. She's had to quit her sports and cheerleading because she's too tired. Her grades have suffered. In summertime, when she wasn't at school, she would stay up until about midnight and then she'd sleep around noon. And she thinks she felt better then, although she does admit she still got drowsy in the summertime. She doesn't think she took as many naps because she was sleeping 12 hours. These symptoms all started about a year ago, she thinks. Probably around January or February, when she was starting to get so drowsy that she just couldn't concentrate in school. She went and saw a family doctor at the Alexandria Clinic in May. And then it tells all of my test results. She can breathe through her nose okay. Her tonsils are in. She doesn't smoke. She doesn't drink alcohol or take drugs. She seems to be growing. She's gained a little weight over the last years, but nothing unusual. Her mood seems to be good. She is not crabby or angry or depressed, according to her mom. Her family history is negative for any sleep problems. Sarah's past medical history is unremarkable. She has always been healthy. She did see a holistic chiropractor about 2 weeks ago who told her he thought she had wheat intolerance and that she should cut down on wheat products. She has done that for the last couple weeks, but her mother hasn't noticed any improvement. She did mention that if she laughs, she has spells. When she's laughing, her legs will get weak, and sometimes her neck gets weak and her head rolls around. Sometimes her legs get so weak that she has to sit down and she can't walk for a few minutes. Then they talk about my blood pressure, my pulse, everything's good. This is severe enough to have caused her to stop doing her usual activities and has caused a decline in her school performance. I think she has a significant problem. These episodes of weakness after laughing sound like cataplexy to me. I think the most likely diagnosis here is narcolepsy rather than obstructive sleep apnea. I counseled Sarah and her mom to get a sleep test done because we are not adequate to do one here. They are satisfied with that plan. La-di-da-di-da. So that pretty much, that pretty much summarizes what I just explained to you. of my symptoms and what led up to getting diagnosed. I did get in at the St. Cloud doctor in January. I met with him and he was like, everything you're saying sounds like you have narcolepsy. And the weakness he described was like the cataplexy, and how he described it. I remember looking at my mom going, oh my gosh, that's exactly, how does he know? Like, wow, I was blown away. And then we had to get in to do a overnight sleep study and then a series of naps the next day, which I think is the multi-latency sleep test. And that I got lucky. He came back to the room and he said, guess what? I just had someone call because of a snowstorm. They can't make it in for their sleep test tonight. You if you want, you can take their spot. So I was able to get in that night, thank goodness, and went to bed. So the overnight sleep study, what they do is it's just like a hotel room, and they hooked up a bunch of electrodes. Gosh, I think there was like 20 of them all over my head, my chest, my legs. They had to test. They had a strap around to test my heart rate, blood pressure, my activity or movement in my legs, my brain waves. So got all hooked up. I felt like a lab rat. And then slept through the night. And then they woke me up at 6 a.m. Oh, I remember it was so hard to stay awake. And then they do a series of 4 tests. So I had to wake up at 6 a.m. and then stay awake for 2 hours, sleep for 20 minutes. Stay awake for 2 hours, nap 20 minutes, 2 hours, nap 20 minutes, for 4 times. So that first time when they woke me up at 6 a.m. and then stayed awake until 8 a.m. and then took that 20-minute nap, I fell asleep in like record time. The nurse will come and she makes sure all the equipment's working, and then she goes back across to the hallway to see her monitors. And that first nap, I fell asleep in 24 seconds. And the nurse had to come back and she said, I just need you to stay awake just a little bit longer until I get across to the hallway. So I did my best, and then the second nap was around like 3 or 4 minutes. The third nap was around 9 minutes, and then again right around that 5-minute mark. So I averaged, I want to say, between like 4 and 5 minutes to fall asleep, and fall asleep into like a REM sleep. That along with the brain waves and everything he had to read, he called back a couple days later and we got the official diagnosis. Yep, you have narcolepsy. So once I got the word back that I had narcolepsy and it was officially diagnosed, the next step was to get me on a medication. And I got on Provigil, and I was on Provigil for 2 years before we kind of started to feel the effectiveness wear off. And then I got on Concerta, and I've been on Concerta for the last 13 years. 15 years of living with narcolepsy, and it's frustrating. It's extremely frustrating. It's heartbreaking what it does to people's lives, what it does to people's relationships, how people are diagnosed as lazy, unmotivated. It sucks living with narcolepsy, and I don't wish it upon anyone, but at the same time, if someone has to have it, I'm glad that I have it, because I don't know if other people could handle it. I just think about, would I be as patient as my friends have been? Probably not. So I've been extremely lucky to have really good friends and really good family. I think about my parents and what they've been through with this whole thing, and it breaks my heart. It really, wow. It really, it's frustrating for me to live with, but I hate how, you know, even when I think back to high school, the frustration of it all. I think about some of the mornings that my mom tried to wake me up to get ready for school. And I remember being so angry, and like, you know, she was doing anything. I wasn't reacting to alarm clocks or to her, like, you know, shaking me saying, Sarah, you got to get ready for school. And I would become so angry, and like, I remember she like would try to like take off my covers as like another way to wake me up. And I remember on a couple occasions I like tried to swing at her. Oh. And all she was trying to do was wake me up for school. And I had become so angry. I mean, I have a really good relationship with my parents. I love them. We're super tight. So for me to be swinging, like, I have a very traditional, like, utmost respect for my parents. I would never swing. I mean, ever swing at them. And so when I think back on what this did, like, swinging at my mom, I remember doing that, and then I'd get ready for school, be so cranky, and I wonder how my parents had the patience to put up with me. And then I remember crying on my way to school because I felt so bad about what I had just done and like how I acted. And this was prior to like text messaging. And so I remember coming home and I would write notes. I'm really sorry that I was so nasty to you. I'm really sorry. Like, it was just like I turned into a monster. And anything that I could do for more sleep. I mean, that just, oh. So it really, it breaks my heart to know that other people could be going through this and not know what's wrong with them. They say that out of all the people that have narcolepsy, only 25% here in the United States are actually diagnosed and being treated for it. That means 75% don't know they have narcolepsy or are uneducated on it and don't know what's wrong with them, is going through the frustrations that I did. If you think that you might have narcolepsy, I highly suggest going in for a sleep study or seeing a sleep specialist. And if you want to learn more about this, I invite you to join me for this upcoming series called Narco Polo. I'm going to talk about how narcolepsy has affected friendships or relationships, career choices. We'll talk to some of my friends and my family, and they'll give you their angle on knowing somebody with narcolepsy. And we'll talk about, is there a cure? What causes narcolepsy? So stay tuned as we go into this Narco Polo series. And if you haven't subscribed, I invite you to do so that you get notifications on when the next videos come out. Thank you guys for watching, and I look forward to seeing you on the next Narco Polo series. Bye.
Next level.